Wednesday. Happy webinar day. George Franco is here today on the Auctioneer webinar stage. George, thank you for coming along for the party.
Lori, it's an honor to be here. Thank you. And thank you for what you do with Auctioneer.
It's my pleasure. Hey, everybody, you guys are in listen only mode. However, there is a chat pod and you can go ahead and drop any questions here. I'll put a note here. Drop your questions here. Go ahead and drop any questions. I would love to know geographically what kind of organization you are fundraising for. Geographically where you're located, and I would also love to know what kind of organization you're fundraising for. I am in sunny South Florida today. George, where are you hanging out from?
In Lawrenceville, Georgia, a suburb of the Atlanta area.
Awesome. And the reason that we asked George Franco to come to our stage is I bumped into George for a long time, but then in person at the Benefit Auctioneer Summit, where all the professional benefit auctioneers come together and gather and sharpen their skills and converse with each other, convene with each other. And George is so good at the work that he does. He brings the fun to fundraising with, he calls it auctiontainment. He is literally your good news auctioneer among 3% of the auctioneers with a benefit auctioneer specialist designation. He's a broadcast veteran, award-winning journalist, but he is an amazing MC and auctioneer host. Oh, I put the chat in the wrong spot. Tracy got it in there for you. Drop your notes. So look like we're going from Denver, Colorado for schools to Atlanta to UK, London Primary School Auction. Thank you for joining us. Probably a little late there, so we appreciate you hanging out with us late in the day. Hospice Private School, Wisconsin, Portland, Oregon, nonprofit in Puget Sound, north of Seattle, Caroline, serving Guatemala, Cambodia. Okay, we're going coast to coast here. Louisiana. Go ahead and continue to drop your information in there.
Oh, thank you for being here. By the way, hello to Port Orchard, Washington. My folks live up there in Port Orchard, Washington, and I went to the University of Washington. Go Huskies, the other dogs.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. So George has put together this webinar and talking about how your fundraising domino dollars are falling, and is really talking about some of the things in and around auction and event fundraising so that you can make the most amount of impact at your event, some planning as well as in room. So George, off we go, right? So your event fundraiser has two purposes. One, to raise money, and the second one, to raise awareness. If you've seen this, if you hung out with me for any bit of time, you'll know that this is what I'm always talking about. Raise money, raise awareness. And it really is two-pronged approach, because you want people to donate to your cause, but you also want them to know about your cause so that they feel the impact and want to open their hearts and their wallets. So this is the agenda of what we're going to try to accomplish today, or we are going to accomplish today. George, you want to kick us off here?
Absolutely. I call myself the Good News Auctioneer because after doing the news for broadcast television markets all across the country for 30 plus years, 35 years, one day I woke up and I said, I need good news. And that's how the Good News Auctioneer was born. Had just started doing this. But I find it's important to have, and you spoke of it right there, it's a mission and a message. What's your mission? What's your message? And what I find is that if I understand the message of the mission of the nonprofit, then I can reiterate those works, those spoken words, that message to our patrons and increase the fundraising dollars. And that's easier said than done. And that's why I think it works for me, because as a benefit auctioneer, I kind of use a lot of my skill set that I had as a television news reporter. My daily job was to get complicated stories and make them into people speak. Sometimes we get lost in the jargon of the industry. And a lot of nonprofits, I think, also end up doing that. They'll speak their language, but is that language understood by your patrons? So that's what I try to do, is to reach the folks in the hearts, minds, and souls and pocketbooks. And when you can do that, the money goes up.
Awesome. So this is our agenda. We're going to talk about when did you call in the pros. We're going to talk about high top tables, square, run of show, who's on your team, revenue raisers. Specific is terrific. Can't wait to get to that. Volunteers and professional bid spotters, funded need levels, slideshows, and video and guest speakers, and we'll have open Q&A throughout. Shall I move on?
Please. Okay, you've already said that, so I'm George Franco. Okay, that should be a video, but
we do. I'm going to click the button. You ready?
Yeah, I just want to show some folks what I can do a little bit. Sometimes I will go the extra mile and kind of fit the garb to the night. Other times I'll back up and be more conservative. I like to know where they're coming from and fit the theme. So I always try to reach the message. So with that in mind, now let's go to the video.
So here we go.
Camp, I saw what this is all about. The children who had these smiles on their faces, the children who felt like they had a place to be, the children who felt safe, who are not coming from a safe environment. This is safety, ladies and gentlemen. You are the super glue of love and generosity that is keeping these children together in more ways than you even realize.
Let's start the bidding at $20,000. It's worth more than double. 20, now 25, 20, now 25, 25, now 30, able to buy at 30, 30, now 35, 35, now 40, able to buy at 40, got 35,000, now 40, now 40, now 45,000. Think of it like this. You're getting an absolutely stunning new vehicle, and you're donating a huge amount of money to the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Virginia Peninsula. That in itself will send you to heaven. 46. All in all, at $47,000. Superman says, sold, sold, sold.
All done at $2,600. Man, you make me do my Freddie Mercury just a minute. Sold, $2,500. What's your number?
You're going to the house at $6,700. If not, we will continue. Do I see here in the house? What is your number, sir? Show me your number. Show me the number. 1-866-6,700.
Well, there you go. I still have that cringy moment when I was on television. I'm always like, I don't like to see myself on television. But I know one thing, it's never about the benefit auctioneer. It's always about the cause. And I think I picked those little clips because it shows that, well, I can do the chant, 25, 35, 45, able to buy. There's a lot of fast talkers in the world.
Right.
And fundraising isn't about talking fast. It's
Right.
about speaking the message and the mission. And I think that's why I showed those. Can I speak the chant? Can I chant? Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. But I find that for the most part, I rarely get caught up in just chanting. I'm always speaking the message. But let's move on. So Domino's falling the wrong way. I don't know how many times I've gone to events and they're like, well, we have high tops. I'm like, why? High tops, not my favorite at all, because they are tall and they're cylindrical and people stand up and they look inside to speak to each other, and you're back there and they're talking to each other and there's this funnel of noise that's climbing up. And when you have 30 high tops, I could just see the noise, and it absolutely fills the room with this distracting noise, and they're distracted and they don't pay attention, and it hurts your fundraising. It just does. And so when people say high tops, I'm like, okay. And I will say this, Lori, I never insist on anything, but I feel it's my fiscal responsibility to share what I believe to are the best examples. And this doesn't come from just me. I'm part of the Benefit Auctioneers Specialist designation. So as you said, where we met, we have a summit every year, and all the benefit auctioneers from across the country come together, and people come to terms. Everybody says, well, my nonprofit is special. Of course it is. Yours is very special. But there's a human behavior to everybody, and this is one of those things. So, but what does work, let me show you what I think works even better. So let's go. So this is Domino's falling in the right way. This is one of my events, and where we spoke, and they had talked about high tops, and I said, well, can we do tables instead? And reluctantly they gave in. Afterwards, it was like, that was a better idea, because what the tables do is it puts people in a lower level, and it gives people a place to sit. I know people say that we don't need to have our people seating because they're full of energy. Well, okay, for about an hour, but 2.5, 3 hours, people fade. And when people fade, money fades, and when money fades, you're not making the mark. So I think that round tables of 8 or 10 are absolutely by far the best way to go. It does dissipate the noise a little better, and if it's a noisier crowd anyway, it's much more manageable to get a hold of that noise and bring it down. And I like to think of fundraising as a little bit of crowd control. We don't want to bash our patrons over the head with anything, but you also can't let it run roughshod either and lose control of everything. And we've been to those kind of events where it's like, oh, this is a nightmare. And I've learned a lot over the years on how to kind of scale that down. I think this is a big part of that, is how do we control the crowd in a way that is beneficial to the nonprofit.
Extremely vital. And for the record, your high tops are okay for registration. If you're signing people in, they're coming in, you want to be eye to eye with them, hand them their paddle, hand them their glass of wine, whatever. And that's nice, because then they're not leaning down at you at a table. But when you're talking about in the room and
you've been there, you know what I'm saying.
And
I'm curious to find out what our participants think about this, because I bet people are saying, yeah, I've been there too.
I'd love to know that. Add that in the chat. Are you using rounds? Are you using highs? Are you using squares? What's going on there? And how many people are you seating at each table?
Speaking of Square and PayPal, I get it. As I reach down for my phone, we all have this, right? We all have our iPhones or whatever, and we all can do much with it. And yes, you can do Square and PayPal and Venmo and whatever. And there are also, and Lori, I'll let you speak about Auctioneer on your own, but if you're going to incorporate it into a software, that's a different thing. But if you're trying to use Square by itself and you're asking 60, 70, 80 people to come through the line and one Square transaction at a time, I've seen it, you've seen it, I have a feeling our folks have seen it, that they see a backup of patrons. And so if you have a backup of patrons as they're walking in the door to get their registration going, and then if you have a backup of patrons as they're leaving, how's that make them feel? That makes them feel frustrated and hopefully not teed off, and that they believe in your cause enough. But why set up obstacles? It's just too slow, too cumbersome. And heaven forbid you have an internet that crashes. And I've been there too. When we go to a big event and then they for whatever reason, they have software issues and they have internet issues and you can't get these softwares to work well, it gets in the way. So I think the better way is what you have. So let's go to the next slide.
You've teed it up so nicely for me, George. You're absolutely right. When I see that, I just want to cry if anybody's doing that. And I'm so sorry that you have, because there is a better way. The fundraising software certainly makes it a lot easier. And this is just an example of how amazing your event website can look to the public. But then on the inside for the dashboard where you can put cards on file, people can self-register, you can scan your tickets on the way in, you can record your donations and then batch checkout. I mean, everything is so streamlined. And the quicker the less the guests have to interact and you can manage that. I mean, so much easier and so much better. And then, you can do training within the platform. Everybody's up and running, and it's going to track everything for your results. And then you can get your data out of that afterwards for your CRM to continue to follow up. And it's just a beautiful cycle of events. Did you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, no, I was going to say that, Lori, I always share with my fundraising partners that what you gain from using software like this is that you have a better roadmap for the future. You just said it. You can look at your ROI. You can see who your best donors were. You can see who didn't donate. You can see if they donated at 1, 2, 3, or 4 levels. And what this kind of software does is, if you've got a live auction, if you have a fund to need, if you have a revenue raiser, if you have a raffle, you can incorporate them all together. Because try thinking about this. You're trying to raise different tickets for different revenue raisers at different points with PayPal and things like that. That just blows my mind. Or you're trying to do it on Excel. ETSO 22. We're in 2025. The software is there. It's robust and it's reliable. So yeah.
Awesome.
Now I think it's important. Oh, this one gets me every time. So to the people out there, let me at least advise this. One of the first things I ask my fundraising partners is share a run of show, because the run of show is important in the sense that it's kind of your roadmap. But what often happens is fundraisers, nonprofits, schools, foundations will start the night and start their planning by, oh, we're going to get in the door at 6 o'clock, and then 6 to 6:30, 7 o'clock, 7:30, we've got silent auction, and then we're going to do herding the cats and get him to the ballroom, herding the cats, right? How do you herd your cats? What I suggest is start backwards. When do you end, and go backwards? And generally 9 o'clock is the end point. There's an energy curve. It goes like this, and it goes like poof, like that. And if you don't pay attention to that energy curve, I promise you, you're hurting your fundraising. And by the energy curve, I mean that people will show up and they have energy and they get a little bit of food in them and they get some drinks in them. And then, but the energy fades. Generally speaking, people do this at from 1 to 2.5 hours. The energy's okay, but 2 hours, 2.5, 3 hours, the energy fades. And when the energy fades, the money leaves the room. So I say start backwards at 9 o'clock or whatever your end point is, and go backwards. And you don't have to put your fundraising last. If you put your fundraising last, in other words, the fund in need and the live auction, then have your people, your patrons in the room, have they spent their energy and have they spent their emotional dollars? And if you say, that happened last time, that's because you're getting to it too late. And too late absolutely hurts you. So yeah, from that point of view, I will say this. And about drinking, we've all been there. 2 drinks makes a pretty good bitter. 4 drinks makes a sloppy drunk, depending on how big that person is. True story. It was for a nonprofit here in Atlanta. And I'm at 25, 35, 45, able to buy at $10,000, all in, done, sold. Okay, 10 grand. That's good. It was for a trip. And then, I don't know, 3 minutes later, the lady comes back to me. There's 600 people out there, 800 people, a big crowd. And I'm on stage. Hey, what's going on? Hey, can you resell that? Sure. What happened? He didn't mean to buy it. Okay. An hour and a half later, literally an hour and a half later, I went back to the van. He's still kind of passed out. I didn't mean to buy it. I was too drunk. You don't want people to, that's a true story. You don't want people doing that to you. You don't want people regretting and getting buyer's remorse. You want them to be all in. I like to say that we're never really selling anything. We're asking people to be a part of a greater purpose than themselves. If you try and sell a watch, and I don't know how many, and I bet you somebody out there, I promise you there's 3 or 4 people who are listening right now and watching who say, oh, well, I have our local jeweler. And I love your local jewelers, but they're going to say, okay, I've got a Cimarana. It's not a Rolex, by the way, but I've got a Cimarana Rolex watch, and you can sell that. And we've tried selling those Rolex watches every time. I mean, every time. They never sell for their $25,000 retail value.
Right.
That's what people are trying to get a bargain. If you set up a bargain hunt, they're going to bargain hunt, and that's going to drive your prices down. So look at it from that point of view. What you're trying to do is set up a boutique that you can only get that experience one time at that one location and go from there. And let me say this about that term, priceless. Oh, I'm a fan, not a fan. What's priceless? A priceless is somebody, and I'm giving you real examples, somebody who bought a fly fishing trip with Vince Dooley, the winning SUGA coach, one of our galas. He's gone now. He passed away a couple of years ago. But a beloved coach in Georgia, and he loves to fly fish. So it was a fly fishing trip with Vince Dooley. Fly fishing trips sell for $800, $1,000, $1,200 if you're lucky. Fly fishing with Vince Dooley, $6,000 twice. That's because that's an experience that they're saying, I get to go with a coach. Now that he's gone, the people who bought that trip are not saying, I spent $6,000. They said, I went with Vince Dooley. So if you have that kind of connection to your community, somebody in your community that can bring something like that priceless experience, that to me is priceless. Priceless is how my wife loves her cat. that cat got sick, and I say that to the animal groups too. That cat got sick, and it spent 7 days in the hospital. And you know what? It wasn't cheap, but it was priceless, because I'm like, she'd do whatever it could to save that animal. Those emotions are priceless. That kind of connection, if you can find it and bring it to the forefront and connect it to your mission, that's what's called the priceless experience. I don't think trips are priceless. You can put a money barrier on a trip. I will say this about consignments. I think consignments are good. Pros, that you can multi-sell them. Cons is that not all the money goes into the nonprofit. Other side of that equation, and I'll move on from this, is that if you've got a board member who says, yeah, well, we've sold the beach house 4 years in a row and it went down every year, that's because you've sold it 4 years in a row. It will go down every year. And the board member is probably a little teed off by now, saying they leave it a mess every time. True stories. Every one of these are true examples of what our nonprofits have been through. So anyway, I could fill up a room with words, my wife says. So what's our next slide? Talk
to us about volunteers and bid spotters.
I had some real pictures, but I'm like, no, I'm not going to put them out. I've done events with bid spotters who are volunteers who've been brought on by the nonprofit. And if you have volunteers that are willing to help, God bless them. And of course, you want to have your volunteers who are voluntold to help out. But does a volunteer bid spotter understand the process? Does a volunteer bid spotter know what's going on? Are they waving, you've seen this, a lighted baton? And I've done it where I'm like, are you waving a baton, or are you just waving at your friend? And have they had too much to drink? And are they connected to the cause? And do they know how an auctioneer works? And do they understand how the money works? And do they know how to speak to the audience? All those things work. I'm not saying they don't work. I'm just saying that for me personally, I like to have my bid spotters. So now this slide, and I saw that Larry Goff, I think you're on here. I saw his name. Larry is one of my bid spotters. And here's some other bid spotters. These are all bid spotters or ringmen, whatever you call it. When I'm in front of a crowd, and these are all recent, like this is within the last month. This is this spring fundraising season. So the top one there is Every Child Counts, and that's Keith. And Keith is great bid spotter, and then CJ, and then Keith again. But what I'm doing is 25. Yup. And so they will signal to me that we have a bid. And my guys are so tight and we're so connected that a lot of times I'm not even watching everything, because sometimes it goes fast. And I hear a yup, I trust them enough to know that I've got a bid. And this is when an auction really has a magic, is when there's an adrenaline to the auction and people get involved in it. And then the people who aren't bidding, they like the action and they like the fun of auctiontainment. So then they become involved too. And that really is the big part of it, is how do you keep everybody engaged? And professional bid spotters, I think, are absolutely critical, at least to my point of view. If you don't use them, I understand it, but for me, I like to have my bid spotters. And if I go out of this, like I'm going in Chicago and I've got bid spotters there from auctioneers I know that I've got in Virginia. I got no auctioneers there. North Carolina, I'll find bid spotters. And South Carolina, Ohio, I always manage to find other folks in other states where I may be who can help out, because there's a pretty good community of auctioneers who want to help out and who want to learn this industry as well.
That warms my heart.
Yeah. Okay. So fundraising is more than just an auction. Fundraising, I think, is all important. Categories of, there's the live auction, there's the fund to need, there's the revenue raisers. Generally speaking, not always. I think schools can raise more money from live auctions. But generally speaking, your fund to need, raise your paddle, whatever you call it, where people give at their own meaningful level, individually at whatever level, those raise about 75% of the funds, 70%. And look, the next time you have an auction, look back and see how many people are involved. What do you find, Lori? Generally, I find that about 15 to 20%, if you're lucky, more like 10 to 15% are actually bidding on live auction items. So I like to focus a lot on the fund a need. I think you get more money out of it. I know you get more funds out of it, generally speaking. But you also have the silent auction. You also have the golden ticket and a golden paddle. A golden ticket is where you sell tickets, and then the ticket revenues, if you sell 100 at $100, what is that, 10,000? Is that, yeah, forgive me, my math. Anyway, and then you split the money, and then the nonprofit gets some of the funds, and then in return, they get to choose one of the live auction items. Golden paddle is where you stipulate that you will receive the funds, but the funds should be invested in the nonprofit at the time. I don't know how you guys do it, but I've always dictate against saying that if you're going to have a money raffle, and of course check with your state, some states are different on laws, but how it doesn't feel good. Lori, tell me about this, about when folks come in and they offer a money raffle and then they walk away with half the money and don't give it to you. I'm
Right.
just about how many people see that. And that happens. If you put it out there and you let them do it, that's going to happen. Anyway, do you want to go to the next slide? The next slide is what's called the last hero. So,
Yes. Do you want to talk about that? And I think you brought us a video also.
yeah, let me explain what this is. I love the last hero, and it generally makes a lot of money. This was at Ser Familia. It's a group, and they had a last hero prize worth about $3,400, and people in at $100. It's not a bid, it's a donation. Every donation counts, and if you donate 3 or 4 times, then every donation counts. So then you win a prize. So with that, let's go to that video.
Sure. Give me a moment here to get up.
Everybody, listen to me well and read it with me and even repeat it if you like. This is not a bid. What? This is not a bid. This is a straight financial donation. Each donation counts. We may raise the donation amount. The last person, the last hero to donate wins the prize. But he says, there's more, says the guy on TV. Our last hero prize is an amazing getaway to Puerto Rico. We're now at $200. So if you haven't come in and you say that's still a $3,000 plus trip, and I haven't come in, it's still pretty good at $200. We're now at the $200 level. Scribes, you got that? $200. Everybody got that? We're now at the $200 level. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 169, $200. 102, $200. 166 is our final.
Anyway, that's a tight little video. But that's generally what you're doing. I think that folks will give funds to a cause for several reasons. One is, what do I get for my money? And that works. That works really well, because that's what the last hero does, is it says you get this prize for your donation. So they're going, okay, I'm in 4 times, that's $400, it's worth $3,000. I'll keep doing it. The other one is they love your cause, and that's the best part, isn't it? Because they love your cause. Maybe you're a school for special needs children. Maybe you're a nonprofit that has orphanages in Guatemala and Cambodia. Hello, Adam. I hope you're here. One of my nonprofits, Saving Susan Ministries. I went with them to Guatemala. So I learned what that mission was about by actually going there. And I do that as often as I can. So the other one is they love your cause. And the other one is financial reasons. Uncle Sam, it's a tax write-off. So how do you attack each and every one of those? And how do you connect with them? And if you're not looking at all of those aspects, then I think that it's easy to miss a lot of funds, because people will give to your cause if you help them along the way.
Do you find different people are raising their paddle for the last hero versus raising their paddle for a fund in need versus for the live auction? So you need to have a variety of 31 flavors, right?
Yeah, some people will show up because they love the cause, and typically those tend to be board members and friends of board members. Other people will show up because they love the party. And I will say this about sponsors: everybody needs sponsorships. I absolutely get it, but be careful when you do sponsorships, because been there, done that. When there's 60% of the room is sponsored by big corporations. The Coca-Colas, the Deltas, the whatever, the big companies.
Right.
And you do an event and they show up and they sponsor, and that's wonderful. And I think it's wonderful for the nonprofit. But what happens, generally speaking, is that the CEO's not going to show up. The boss isn't going to show up. A lot of times the boss will say, hey, I've got some tickets. Who wants to go? And they'll send 4 or 5 people representing their company. But are those people connected to your cause? They may or may not be, because they've said, well, you know what? Our company's already giving to the cause because we sponsored. So that's holding back money. And it's not holding back money if you look at it from the sponsorship point of view. I get it. There's a big bucket of where's all the money coming from: sponsorships, capital campaigns, grants, galas. So it's not one thing. We look at the big picture and say, how does it all work together? But if you over-sponsor a nonprofit event or a gala, then I really believe that you got to watch out, because if those sponsors don't donate to the cause, it'll hurt the fundraising. So how do you balance that all out? That's the part of how do you get people in the room, and that's important. And I think that's part of working with board members and patrons and volunteers to spreading the message and getting it out in advance. And I like to tell or advise my nonprofit fundraising partners that market. Tell them that you're going to have it. Hey, we hope to see you there. Save the date. Here's what's coming up. You can't remind people enough. You
sound just like me. I'm like, tell them you live it all day long, but they don't.
Oh, and that's the thing. People in their space of their nonprofit, of their mission, it's their world. I get that. We get that. But you know what? Your patrons have 5 or 6 other things tugging at them, not just nonprofits, but their lives, whatever that is. And so in these days of social media, it's easy to get stuff out. I've had this conversation. Tell me about what you have, Lori, and I'd love to hear from some of our folks. But somebody said to me, oh no, we want to surprise people. I'm like, why? You're asking them to donate $5,000. You're putting a travel package that's worth $10,000. I don't want to go to an event and then spend money on a surprise. No. And the other part of this equation is, if you're selling travel or anything, ask your folks ahead of time, vacation with a purpose, and then let them know that this is coming up in the live auction or the silent auction, and ask them to give to the cause and remember you when they're on that whatever cause vacation picked up. Yeah, not telling people absolutely kills it. It hurts it. And I don't know why I keep seeing it, that people, I don't know, maybe they're just busy. I don't know what that answer is.
Hey, George, the next couple of slides are talking about a little bit of logistics, but since we have the image here and we're talking about in the room, you had told me about a sweet live auction with some cupcakes. Do you want to share that story with our group here today?
Absolutely. And this is that going back to, we're never really selling anything. This is the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Virginia Peninsula. And this will be my 4th time. Next year's my 5th time. Working with this group I love, the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Virginia Peninsula. It's in the Newport News area. Michael Vick, the football star, that's his alumni. Anyway, we sell as a tradition a dozen cupcakes made by the girls and boys of one of the clubs. And every year that somebody makes these cupcakes, they're nice cupcakes. And the first year I said, well, okay, let's start at $100 each. Okay. And then we got to 100, 1,000, 1,500. And then somebody missed, one of the big donors said, I'm going to give 10,000. Oh, okay. Wow. 10,000. Okay. So the first year, and then I came back and then we sold them again. And he said, sell them again. So that first year we got about 15,000 for them. And then this year they came up again. I said, oh my gosh, now what am I going to do? And sometimes if I understand the message and the mission and the patrons and they know me, I feel like, okay, kind of gutsy, George, but do it anyway. And I did it anyway. And I think they weren't surprised. I started at $1,000 a cupcake. I said, I'm crazy. And I thought, if it doesn't work, I'll just drop it. Boom, hands. And trying to sell, instead of trying to sell 100, 200, 300, let's get to 1,000 and you get a cupcake. I said, all right, who's in at $1,000? Everybody gets a cupcake at 1,000. 12 hands in the air, that's 12,000. I said, okay. And then this gentleman came back in and said, this year I'm going to give more money. I think he gave, I forget, maybe another 12, 15. So he donated it and he said, sell them again. So he sold them again. And in the end, we ended up with $28,000 for cupcakes. And one guy said, I don't eat cupcakes, I'm diabetic. So that's the power of giving is my point.
Right.
It isn't about trying to convince your patrons that they're going to get something in return for their money. It's more about asking them to be part of the cause and touching their heart and soul. And I think we have a little video about that. What's on the next video?
I do. Did you want me to pull that one up now?
No.
The next one we have is the
just keep going because I'm trying to watch the time.
No, we'll have time for everything, I promise. Talk to us about who's on the team, the clerks and the scribes.
Yeah, so I don't know how these folks do it. A lot of times I'll show up at an event and they have volunteers who are registering people. And this is Connections Homes in Atlanta. And I love this group. And this dear lady in the middle there, she's the daughter of the organizer. And she always puts it together and they have software. And I'm going to tell them to use Auctioneer, sorry. Anyway, so but the team is always ready and they always know how to input the data and they work it really well. And it goes well. They always have it well organized and they always have enough people. They got 4 people there and the girl in the back and as a backup. I said, I'm gonna take a picture because this is what's needed when people don't know how to do it. But that means you have to get either your volunteers or your staff or somebody has to be there. And if you're having trouble finding those people, that's a kink in the armor. That will hurt you, and that will absolutely hurt you. So if you have your scribes, and your scribes are recording the live auction, the fund a need, the live activities, and the clerks are the ones who are registering and putting everything in the computer. And so the clerks ahead of time register people before the event in the office, at the event, and then the scribes watch as we're raising funds and write that down. And then it could be the same people, or they hand it back to the clerks and they put it in the computer. That all takes coordination. I don't know what you find, but if that part isn't coordinated, it's going to hurt. And that's where the ship starts to sink, and that's the iceberg. If you don't have this part figured out, it's trouble.
Right.
So that's
and test it and try it out and make sure everybody knows what they're doing and their roles.
Yeah. And if you don't have that, then this is one answer. This is, and I put her in here because she's part of my team and I'm part of hers, and like Auctioneer, this is knockout fundraising. This is Candice Luisi, the lady in the red, the other red. That other girl is Morgan and Morgan. I would call them the lawsuit. The Morgan and Morgan, the lawyers group, but there's the 2 Morgans is the blonde. And what they do is they'll come in and they will scribe and register for you. And people say, well, that costs money. Okay, but what does it cost you to lose? That's the part of the equation I think some people don't understand is, okay, well, we don't want to pay anybody. I'm like, okay, but what are you losing? And I would challenge the nonprofits and folks on here to kind of do a deep dive and say, are we making the funds we need to, or are we losing the funds because of the way the dominoes are falling? If the dominoes are falling in the wrong direction, which is the tables and then the way the run of show goes and your clerks and your fundraising and all those little pieces, if they go in the wrong direction, then the dominoes are falling in the wrong direction. And there's a reason they fall in the wrong direction. And this just helps the dominoes fall in the right direction. But I know that another part of this is, I say dominoes falling the wrong way. A fund a need is where you ask funds from the individuals specifically. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my speech generally. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we call our fund a need. Some can do more, others can do less, but all can do some. It's like we're asking you to participate in something larger than yourselves. It's not like we're asking you to participate in the Squid Game. Red light, red light, oop, I'm out. Anyway, if you know what Squid Game is, you know what that is. But it's about people giving at their own meaningful level. And if you don't put it up there, and if you ask the executive director to do it or the board member to do it, and they've never done that, it's awkward and it's painful. And we had one of those groups come back to me the next year and say, could you do it? She don't want to do it anymore. It was painful. And so you need a slideshow. Specific is terrific. That's what I say. And and I'm fine with different levels. Generally, the levels are $5,000, $2,500, $1,500, $250, and $100 for the last hero. But they had a specific $700 that was for every child counts. It's tuition for this child in Africa. So, okay, I said, fine. If you have specific levels for specific needs, I'm fine. That's why I say specific is terrific. A funded need with visual elements and the specific details, that explains the message and the mission to your patrons. So the slideshow, well, it's a little thing, it's not a little thing. Especially at galas, people don't listen that well. They'll see a slideshow, and
Right.
hard to get them to, hopefully not, and hopefully their attention is deft and they're like absolutely focused in, but you need a visual representation. Guest speakers. This is Bindu, and Bindu is the executive director of Every Child Counts. This took place 3 weeks ago. Every Child Counts has schools in Kenya, and Bindu and her husband go there with their team, and they support these schools, and they're building these schools. I love it, and it's lovely. And she was lovely. She had a very heartfelt message, and so I think it's important. If you have a live speaker, somebody has to be the bad cop. I don't know who that is. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know who that is. If you want to talk to me or you're a fundraising professional, somebody's got to have that conversation. And I bet there's people in our audience going, yep, because have we not been to these where somebody shows up and it's a board member or a volunteer or a parent or whatever, and they go on there and they're going on and on and on and on.
Right.
And nobody has, and it wasn't planned ahead of time, and nobody knew it was going to go on that long, and it goes on for 30 minutes, 25, and it hurts, just hurts your fundraising cause. And so if that's the case, I don't know who that bad cop is, but somebody's got to rein it in, and you got to pay attention to that. So I like to have, and she was short spoken, and we spoke about this ahead of time, and she goes, help me with my script. And the other part of this, I will say, is sometimes my fundraising partners will say, can you help me with the script? But also AI is out there now. What you don't want to do is you don't want, and I get it. Some people can speak extemporaneously off the cuff, but a lot of people can't. A lot of people need a written guideline. That's fair. And you want to get the right points in. But also, if you've not written a script before for people speak, then you're going to write a classified ad, and you've heard those too. When you get in, somebody gets in front of a crowd and they're speaking, and they're droning on because they're reading a script that was terribly written, and it's not written for the spoken word. It's written for the passive written word, and it doesn't come off well because it's not spoken. People ask me, I'm a television news dude, so I know how to write for the spoken words. I would speak on TV. You got to write for the spoken word. It's a little thing, but it's not. Once again, it's all these little things that add up to be big things. But what I like is this next example. It's a little thing, but it's not. This is a child cancer group.
Should we bring up our video?
Yeah, and this is a mom whose child has cancer, and Joshua's wish helps the mom, and she just wanted to say thanks. And it's a short video, and the lady sent it to me, and I kind of, anyway.
I'm going to hit play. Ready?
Hey everyone, we just wanted to make a short little video to thank Joshua's Wish for their generous donations of Christmas presents for December of 24. Robin was diagnosed with cancer back in December of 23, so the entire year of 24 we were back and forth to doctor's appointments. I was missing work, I was trying to get childcare for my other baby, which was really just having family members watch her, but I missed a lot of work and wasn't able to afford Christmas for the two kids. So Robin finished chemotherapy in September of 24, and I went back to work, but it was time to play catch up on bills that I had missed and buying stuff that we needed for the house. And Joshua's Wish gave us a relief by reaching out to Hope for Kids, and that's how my caseworker for Robin got in contact and was like, hey, so I just want to say thank you for the donations that Joshua's Wish gave to her, gave to my youngest baby. They love the gifts. They're still playing with them and all. And also want to thank the group that also gave us a bed for the baby. We received a mattress, a twin size bed frame, a blanket set as well for the baby, and I'm so grateful that they donated that to us. I'm so grateful that they reached out, because they just randomly reached out to me one day, and I'm just very grateful. So thank you, Joshua's Wish. You say thank you, Joshua's Wish.
Thank you, Joshua's Wish.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh,
It's a little video, but for that family, it was everything. And
Right.
I will say this about videos, put captions on them. People look up, and if they don't see a caption, they don't know what's being said, and they may or may not hear it. So when you have captions, it has a different attention grabbing factor to it. So I would say definitely captions on the videos. So where are we with this?
we are, give me a second here, to our final two slides, how to stay in touch with us for Auctria. You can always reach out us to hello@auctria.com. We have an amazing Facebook group, Auction Team Talk. All sorts of people continue the conversations that are happening here on the other, on Facebook if you hang out there. George, this is the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm easy to find. Just Google the Good News Auctioneer. I'm in Metro Atlanta, but I show up. I'm easy to find. But yes, this is the best way to get in touch with me.